We have daylight saving time in the UK from the 26th of March to the 29th of October, so something to be aware of, and it will confuse you every year, and you probably will forget every year, and you'll be like, oh, what? I got an extra hour of sleep, or I got an hour less of sleep. Hi， 大家好，我是戴淑萱。今天想跟大家讨论在英式英文中如何说日期和时间，因为我知道很多人对英式说法很困惑，它和大家平常学习的美式英文不同。So today I'm going to start by teaching you how to tell the time the British way. Then I'll give you some pointers or things to be aware of when talking about dates and times in British English. Then we'll do a little practice, and then we'll do an example conversation at the end. So by the end of this video, you should be feeling pretty confident about using dates and times in the UK. So let's start with this clock. How would you write this in the digital format? So the way that you are probably used to is like this, 12 AM or 12 PM. And we do also use this in the UK sometimes. But sometimes you will see the 24-hour clock, and that would look like this. This is equivalent to 12 AM and 12 PM. So it's very useful to remember that 4 zeros is 12 AM, aka midnight, the middle of the night. And 12 PM is 12 in the afternoon, meaning midday. By the way, in my experience, people don't often use the word noon in the UK. So we have midnight and midday. Now, the 4 zeros is of course the start of the 24-hour clock. We could also think of it as the end of the 24-hour clock. So instead of 2400, it's just flip back to 0 again. By the end of this section, I hope that this makes more sense. A clock means when the minute hand is on the number 12, meaning on the hour. For example, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and so on. This is the same as American English, so it shouldn't be too confusing. So moving on to a time that is not a clock, but actually has some minutes with it, how would you write this analog clock in a digital format? So this is the usual way that you would be used to, and this is the 24-hour way, which we often use in the UK. So if we remember that 000 was midnight, then 105 would be 1 in the middle of the night, and 13 would be 1 in the afternoon, because it's just come after the 12, which, as we remember, was midday. But we often say the time and write it differently. For example, I might say this as 105. So the O is a way of saying 0. I wouldn't say 105, I would say 105. That's one way of saying it. I wouldn't say 1305 in speaking. This is only for the clocks that you will see. For example, on your oven or on your alarm clock, you will often see this time format, but any number above 12 is only for looking at and not for saying. Besides 105, there is a more common way of saying this in speaking, which is 5 past 1. So we take the number of minutes and then look at, is it coming past or before the hour? It was 1 and now it's just past 1, so that is 5 past 1. How about this analog clock? How would you write this in a digital format? Like this, 2:10 is in the middle of the night, or we have 2:10 PM, which looks like 14. So if you see the number 14 in a clock time, that means 2 in the afternoon. And we could just say it like 2:10 or 2:10 AM, 2:10 in the morning, or 2:10 PM, or 2:10 in the afternoon, but an even more common way would be 10 past 2. 10 past 2 in the morning, or 10 past 2 in the afternoon. Would we say 10 past 2 AM? Not usually. It would be 2:10 AM or 10 past 2 in the morning. That's the usual way. If you're going to use the past way, we would usually say in the morning or in the afternoon. What about this clock? How would you write it? Like this. So 15 means 3 in the afternoon. Now you might be thinking, yes, I've got the hang of it. It's 15 past 3 in speaking. Unfortunately not. There's an important thing to know, which is that 15 minutes is called a quarter in speaking. Why? Because it's a quarter of an hour. So we can say quarter past 3. And we also might say 3:15, but very common to hear quarter past 3. What about this clock? We could say 4:20 AM or 4:20 PM, or we could say 20 past 4 in the morning or in the afternoon. And if I said to my friend, I'll meet you at 20 past 4 in the afternoon, she might write in her diary 16:20 for that time. What about this clock? What do you think? Written like this, So 17 means 5 in the afternoon, and we would say it like 25 past 5. What about this clock? We can write it like this. So the thing to remember there is that 18 is always 6 in the afternoon. And you might be thinking, well, how can I remember that? It does take some time, and I remember as a child, it also took me a long time to get used to this. And sometimes I would be thinking, oh, it's 8:30, because it has an 8 in it, but actually this is 6. So the easiest way to work it out is to subtract 12 from 18. So 18 minus 12 is 6, and that's your time, 6:30. And we do often say 6:30, but we also often say 6:30, because 30 minutes is half of an hour. 6:30. Now we get into some more confusing territory. This clock would be written like this, 7:35 a.m. or p.m. or 19:35 if you're using the 24-hour clock. But in speaking, any number of minutes that comes after 30 is then thought about as the number of minutes to the next hour, because it's closer to the next hour than it is to the previous hour. So we would actually say 25 to 8, because it's almost 8 o'clock. We just have 25 minutes less than 8 o'clock, so that's why it's to 8. And now we'll see a pattern here on this side of the clock. So try this one for yourself. How do you think, first of all, that we would write it? Like this. This is the written way using the 24-hour clock. And in speaking, have a guess? 20 to 9. And try not to say 20 to 9, because this 2 doesn't need to be emphasized. It's just like a throwaway, casual pronunciation of this word. 20 to 9. 20 to 9. What about this clock? It would be written like this. So 21:45 means 9:45 in the evening, and it would be said like 9:45, because remember that 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour, and we now have 15 minutes left until 10 o'clock, so we would say 9:45. Now, of course, this is confusing because you will hear someone say 9:45 and you hear the word 10 and think that they must be talking about like 10:15. Just listen out for whether they're saying a t or a past. Past would be after that number, and to is to the next hour, okay? Let's try this one. We've still got a few more practices. This would be written like this. 22:50 means 10:50 in the evening. And in speaking, we could say 10 to 11. How about this one? It would be written like this and said like 5 to 12. Or you could also say 5 to midnight. And do we say 11:55? Yes, you can. They're sort of equally used, both of these ways, which is why it's important to also know the British way. Now, of course, here we can see that 11:55 in the evening is 23 hours, and that is why 24 hours brings us back to midnight, which is the start of the next cycle, and is usually written as 4 zeros. So you won't often see 24 hours written down. It will usually look like 4 zeros. Right, I just want to thank today's sponsor, NordVPN. If you have any interest in watching English-speaking TV from abroad, then you probably need a VPN. Let me show you how it works. So we can see on this map that there's loads of different locations you can connect to. So if I was watching some TV from over in Asia, then I might connect to one of these regions, and then I can just use the internet as if I was in that location. Meaning that if someone was spying on you, they don't actually know where you're really located. Super useful in case you have stalkers. But not only that, you can watch all of the TV that people can watch in those regions. So if you're learning a language, that's super useful. So if you are connecting to London, then I recommend that you go to bbc.co.uk/iPlayer, and then you can see all of the TV that we've got here. Peaky Blinders is a really good one. You can learn like kind of Brummie or Birmingham accent with that one. This Country is really funny. It's about people who are sort of in poverty, which sounds kind of sad, but it's quite entertaining. Gavin and Stacey, hilarious. They have a Welsh accent. Mrs. Brown is also quite funny. Apart from that, you can also watch Channel 4. Ooh, I really want to watch this one. Russell Brand, he's quite a good speaker. Made in Chelsea, if you're interested in what the sort of upper middle class live like. In-Betweeners is one of my favourites. This is a classic of my generation. So you can see just how many resources there are that you can use to learn and have fun at the same time. So fantastic resource there. Of course, also we're living in a strange time, so you might want to sort of protect your online space. Make sure that no one that you don't want to be spying on you is spying on you. That's another great reason to use NordVPN. Anyway, so when you're signing up, make sure that you use this link and you can get an exclusive discount. Again, this link, use this one. Thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to it. Now let's talk about some important things to do with dates in the UK. This is also quite confusing because it does differ to the US. In the UK, dates are written with the day first, and then the month, and then the year. For example, 4/9/23 would mean the 4th of September to me, because the 9 in the second position is referring to the month, which is September. Another example, 10.1.93 would mean the 10th of January 1993. Okay, so that is important to know. If you're talking to someone from the UK, they are going to be thinking in this way, and they are very likely to misunderstand your date if you're writing it in the American format. So just make sure that you know what page you're on. The other thing to be aware of is ways of writing and saying the time differently. Here are some common ways of writing dates. Some of these are common throughout the world and some are more used in the UK. So we can use a dot or we can use a slash, and then it would be 3rd July 2023 and not July 3rd. That's the American way. Remember, we switched the place there. So write the day first. 3rd July 2023. But in speaking, we would say the 3rd of July 2023. So if you do want to sound more natural and native, just remember to add the and of. They're small grammatical words, but they do make a bit of a difference to how natural you sound, because this is the way we speak. The 3rd of July 2023. Let's look at another example. So this looks like 5th March 1993, but it would be said like the 5th of March 1993. Let me say it at my natural pace. The 5th of March 1993. Now I just want to show you something kind of strange that happens when talking about years, and let's start way back in time before Christ, so that's BC. We would say this as 1400 BC. Could you say 1400 BC? You might find some people say that, but it's very common to say 1400. This next one is AD, meaning after Christ was born, and we could say 1500 AD. 1500 AD. Would we say 1500 AD? It's much rarer to say that in my experience. Now let's go through these years and you can see what happens. We've got 1600, 1602, 1610, 1900, 1902, 1910, 1912, 1920, 1922. These are all just to give you some examples. 1930, 1932, 1940, 1942, 1960, 1962. But then we come to this one and we wouldn't say 2000, we would say 2000. The year 2000. 2002 and not 2002. I've never heard anyone say that. So it seems to be an exception for those years in the 2000s which are close to our current day. So 2000, 2002, 2007. But then after we get to the number 10, it goes back into the usual way of splitting it, like 2010, 2012, 2020. Could you say the year 2010? Some people do say that, but not as common as 2010. Could you say 2012? Yes, that seems to be equally as common as 2012. Then we have 2020. Could you say 2020? That one is rarer in my experience. It's 2020, 2022, 2030, 2032, 2040, 2042, and then we get into another grey area where maybe people would say 2050 at this point, or you could maybe say 2052. But when we get much higher than that, for example 3000, then it goes back to thousands again. The year 3000, 3002, 3020. I would find it a little strange if someone said the year 3020. That doesn't quite fit. It should be 3020, 3042, 3300, 3420. And definitely you'll find people say the year 3420 and not the year 3420. Yeah, I would find that quite strange to say the year 3420 because it's such an abstract, random, like future year that we just don't really know about. So we just say it as a normal number. So it seems like the years that are closer to our current day, we have more of a sort of spoken way, which is like 1920, 2020, 2012. Yeah, so our current year is 2023. Don't say the year 2023. It just sounds kind of weird when you say it like that. Everyone knows what you're talking about, so we can just say it in this quick, casual way, 2023. So just to recap what I think the pattern is here, between the 2000 and 2010, we would say 2000, like 2005, 2008. After 2010, we get into the splitting it way again, 2012, 2015, 2016. Between the years of 2010 and 2020, we have kind of an equal footing, where you could say the year 2016, or you could say the year 2016. After 2020, then we must say 2021, 2022, and it sounds weird if you say 2022. And then once you go far into the future, you can use 1000 again, just as if you're talking about a regular number, like the year 5750. You can just say it like that. Yeah, so kind of a strange thing that native speakers do have a sort of strong wrong feeling. Like if you say the 3rd of July 2021, it sounds a little bit strange. It's like, oh, you can just say 2021. Another thing to be aware of is that we have daylight saving time in the UK. This means that from the 26th of March to the 29th of October, every year, the UK goes into British summertime, which is BST. Normally we are GMT time zone, but in the British summertime, it changes to GMT +1, which is the same as BST. And this means that there's only a 7-hour time difference with Asia compared to 8 hours. So something to be aware of, and it will confuse you every year. Everyone always finds it annoying, and you probably will forget every year and you'll be like, oh, what? I got an extra hour of sleep, or I got an hour less of sleep. My brain personally can't handle time zones, it's confusing. Now let's practice our British pronunciation of the months, then we're going to practice some clocks again, and then we'll finish with a conversation. January, January. February, February. March, March. April, April. May, May. June, June. July, July. August, August. September, September. October, October. November, November. December, December. So the tricky ones are probably January and February. January, February. All right, now you've had a little break from the clock thing. Let's come back to that and do some practice. How would you say this in speaking? 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. How would you say this one in speaking the British way? 6:30. 6:30. How would you say this one in speaking the British way? 4:15. 4:15. Because it's 15 minutes after 4 and 15 minutes is a quarter past 4. How would you say this one? 25 past 1. 25 past 1. Again, just to say that it is also possible to say 1:25. How would you say this one? 10 to 3. 10 to 3, because it is almost 3 o'clock, but not yet. We still have 10 minutes left. 10 to 3. 10 to 3. And this one, so we can say 2 past 10, 2 past 10, or you can say 10:02, 10:02. Now, just to say if the numbers are quite specific, like a 2 or a 3, it's usually more common to just say 10:02 or 10:03, or if it is a casual situation, you just round it up or down. For example, this is basically 10 o'clock, or I might want to round it up and say this is 5 past 10, 5 past 10. So if someone asked me what time it is, I would look at the clock, and if it's basically 10 past 10, I'd say, oh, it's about 10 past 10. And it would be kind of strange for me to say it is 8 past 10, because in speaking, it's usually not that necessary to be so precise. But if you do need to, for whatever reason, you can say 8 past 10, or you can say 10:08, 10:08. Now let's look at an example conversation so that you can see how times would be said in daily life. Good morning. Have you had your breakfast yet? Morning. Yes, I had my breakfast at around 7:30. How about you? I had mine at about 8:15. So, what's on your schedule for today? I have a meeting with my client at 10 o'clock. After that, I need to finish some paperwork, and then I have a dentist appointment at 3:30. That sounds like a busy day. I'm meeting a friend for lunch at 1 o'clock, but apart from that, I don't have any other plans. Okay, you kind of get the gist, so you can use these in speaking, and it's very common and normal to talk about times as like 1/2 or 1:45, or the things that we've learned today. So I hope that you found today's video useful. For more super useful everyday tips about language and life, living and traveling in the UK, I've finished preparing my ultimate UK travel crash course. You can click here or in the description to go and buy it now. 谢谢收看，我是戴淑仙，我们下次再见哦，拜。